We could do this. We can ruin it. Unconstrained.
Somewhat constrained.
Unconstrained. Ruination Live Unchained.
You guys ready to ruin it?
Yeah.
All right. Are we ready? Are we doing it?
Yeah.
We're doing it?
Video games.
Welcome to the Idle Thumbs Ruination Online for September 2017. Just in time for September 2017. For Idle Thumbs, I'm Chris Remo.
I'm Nick Brecken.
I'm Jake Rodkin.
Hey, guys.
Hi.
Hey.
How's it going?
Oh.
Pretty all right.
Okay. Shall we ruin it? This is the stream on which we answer questions posed to us by high-tier Patreon patrons. At our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/idlethumbs. How many times can I say the word Patreon in one sentence? A lot.
Patreon.
So we have a couple dozen questions.
Oh, sorry. I was wording
Somebody.
And should we just get going? Should we just
Let's do it.
dip right in?
Well,
Let's dip in to these questions.
Dip in.
Dunk it.
Dunk it in the Ruination bucket.
I thought you were going to say Ruination butter.
Even better. The Ruination butter bucket.
Churn it.
Churn it. We're just going to churn this Ruination butter bucket right along.
Put your body in it.
Slather it.
Smear it.
All right.
Okay.
Taste it. That afterwards.
Oh, no. That's what you don't want to do.
Well, it's what you don't want to do unless you're on the Idle Thumbs Ruination Online. In which case, Graham Thomas asks, if you were to be replaced by an AI android intending to assume your identity without alerting those around you, what behavior of yours would the AI immediately engage in to prevent suspicion in your friends and family? Asking for a totally human friend who's definitely not a robot. This is like Spy Party. It's like Chris Hecker's video game Spy Party.
Yeah.
It was sort of the opposite, though. In Spy Party, you're a human who is trying to look like a computer NPC,
right,
so that you don't get shot.
Yeah.
But in this case, you're an android trying to act like a specific human so you don't get identified. What are the things you do? What are our defining characteristics that an AI would impersonate?
I know. The more I think about it, the more I think, man, it'd be really easy.
Yeah? Why? What would you do?
Oh, hold on.
Wake up and sit in front of a computer for 4 hours.
Oh, sure.
You know, like,
I think my AI would just be like a really generous sort of friend and supportive, person to everyone around them. I think immediately. That's probably like the first thing that they would do.
That's the first thing they would do?
Yeah.
What would they do after they wrap that one up? After they took care of, well, done and dusted.
I mean, then they'd probably just kill everyone because they passed the test.
That's true.
Nick, sorry, you had a real answer?
Well, no, I thought my AI would probably go on like a podcast and talk about, AIs and robots.
God, hiding in plain sight.
You'd have to pretend to be dumber about it than you
that's
actually
true.
are, though.
Yeah, it would have to engage in really.
You'd have to sort of
like,
not. You'd have to be sitting there while the other two of us are like, anyway, this is definitely how AI works, and you're sitting there being like, yes, yes,
totally is,
guys, hilarious.
Wouldn't it be funny if I was if I replaced one of you? Ha 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 ha!
Classic. Oh,
why is everyone obsessed with us getting replaced with robots, including ourselves? We've talked about this like 1,000 times.
Something. I think. I can't remember.
I have no idea why this exact scenario is repeatedly presented.
How weird.
I would have to just pretend to be amused by you two idiots. I mean, normal Jake was often genuinely amused by you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have you ever told a lie that you then had to keep perpetuating? Sorry, I was asleep.
Mine would be easy because I could just, on the podcast, I could just say the same canned thing I say at the beginning of everyone and then just read a bunch of questions that are written down on a page.
That's true.
It's not that hard. Tom Grundy asks, what is your opinion on the long-term viability of virtual reality? By virtual reality, I mean both the current head-mounted display implementation and augmented reality devices like the HoloLens. I feel like VR is kind of like already sort of being over.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys disagree with this. It doesn't feel like a
I think it will come back.
You think so?
Yeah. In like
every
27
years.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, this is one of those things that I feel it's unclear to me how much my instincts on it are correct, because when the current wave of VR started, my reaction was, I don't think this is going to take off. It seems expensive and big and bulky and not very usable. And also, here's like the biggest thing. I think the type of people who are interested in VR are basically a subset of people who are interested in video games anyway. Like, I've never really bought the line that like, oh, once you put the thing on, you're going to win over all these people. No, like, they're going to think it's cool, but that doesn't mean they're going to want to like have it in their home and wear it all the time and like buy a bunch of games for it and buy an expensive enough computer or video game system to run it and do all the stuff. Like, the bar for regular video games is way lower than that, and that's still not a bar that like people who aren't super into it are willing to get over. And so I've never bought the idea that this was just going to be a magical thing. And like, I feel like that's true. I feel like my suspicions have been kind of borne out.
Yeah.
But I feel like weird saying that, because I'm probably also skeptical about other things that end up being successful.
Sure.
But this feels like one where I think my suspicions were kind of correct.
I think you're right. I think that my guess for the best, or the way that I suspect it would shake out in a way that includes all of the current tech, is that I suspect AR will actually catch on. Because AR,
I think so too.
AR is a concept and VR is basically a piece of hardware. Like, VR stands for, or VR sort of means full immersion. You're wearing a huge headset with headphones on. Your senses are replaced, which feels like it's almost like the top of the stack of augmented reality stuff, where you've augmented all things to the point that you've basically replaced them, whereas like AR can mean you hold up your phone and the location of the restaurant you're trying to get is listed over the top. Yeah, or like whatever. You can imagine things overlaid on top of your workplace as a thing that could help certain types of like, you know, like engineering jobs, or like just line work in a like assembly line or whatever. Like, you can imagine it having practical applications, whereas strapping on full sensory everything full VR is like, it's always going to be like the top tier subset of what sort of the AR marketplace and sort of AR landscape seems like it'll be. Because like, given that you're
the single player first person shooter campaign of
AR.
I think it's totally true.
Yeah.
It's the immersive sim, if you will.
The other thing about AR is like, I mean, I think this is actually not the other thing. This is totally a subset of what you were saying. You can do AR to just do a tiny thing that's kind of lame, but that people like Snapchat filters. That's basically AR. Right. It's like just put a stupid face on something. Like, that's honestly like more people are going to be interested in that than some incredibly like overwrought crazy thing where you have to put a helmet on.
Every dumb tiny AR demo is actually instantly appealing. Or like when the AR kit on iPhone, which is Apple's AR thing that uses like all of your phone plus the camera to do little augmented reality stuff. Like, the first demo of it was someone saying, "Look, I put a tape measure in it," and it's like, well. It doesn't. Okay, fine. That. Yeah, I still will use my tape measure, but like then someone
the ability to do that instantly anytime you want. It's kind of cool.
Someone expanded that demo to like, okay, you're apartment hunting and you want to figure out the actual square footage, and if your furniture will fit, you can literally point your phone camera in the four corners of the room, and then it tells you. Like, IKEA already has an iPhone app that just puts their couch in your living room.
Yeah,
that's like instantly applicable to human beings. I mean, okay, not just. I know that my example is like a super hyper capitalist experience made fun of in shit like Fight Club or whatever, but like that sure, but the fact that you can get information, you can use like day one, like first stab at AR stuff to immediately extract useful information out of our current life.
Yeah, generally speaking, it integrates with the world instead of replacing the world.
Yeah, it's a big
difference.
And
I think if you look at sort of what kinds of games and entertainment experiences have won out versus the ones that are still kind of niche experiences, it's like the things people use computers for now is like social media that integrates with the world instead of replacing. I mean, shitloads of people definitely still play GTA, absolutely. But in terms of like which is the one that became the default experience that every single person on the planet uses computing devices for, it's social media. It's just the one that allows the one that just like talks to the world at large. And I think that's kind of a metaphor for like why AR probably has a longer and more fruitful life than VR. Anyway,
we're experts on this, by the way. Let's just
yeah. I don't. Stephen Norrie says, "I'm considering a solo holiday next year. What would you recommend? I'm based in Europe and prefer breaks in the countryside for hiking, etc. over city breaks." Man, I don't know. I'm totally a city break person, so I don't feel very equipped to.
I used to
this.
occasionally do solo vacations when I was single, and they were always just to go to a world city somewhere. That was just my thing. So
same.
This question goes right to the heart of our experience and advice.
Yeah, Americans who like cities.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
we actually had a friend of ours, Gabe McGill, who years ago was the Idle Thumbs intern, actually, and he just recently, just this year, went on an outrageous European month-long vacation where he just flew to he found the cheapest flight he could get to anywhere in Europe, and then spent an entire month taking the train just all around Europe, entirely scheduling his route based on where he was able to get dinner reservations at nice restaurants. He basically budgeted his like 90%, I don't know how much, but basically his whole budget was food, and then the rest of it he just did cheaply, and he just went to nice restaurants and ate. I mean, that's definitely not what this person wants to do, I don't think, based on their question, but I thought it was a really cool idea for a Europe-focused rail vacation, and he just said he had just the best meals of his life.
You could, I think the spend the most of your money on meals part, if you replace that with the thing that you want to be doing.
Yeah, sure.
It's just Gabe's trip was a reminder to me that you can
slant your vacation.
Yeah, very aggressively.
You know what? I do have a recommendation. I haven't done this personally, but I know many people who have done it. The Camino Trail in Spain is a sort of famous pilgrimage, but now people just sort of go to do it as kind of just a walking tour of Spain, and it's like a long, I think it's 30 days on average. I think
doesn't Camino just mean road?
Yeah.
Is that a specific?
It is a specific.
Okay.
It's called the Camino,
is it like
El Camino?
Is it like El Camino Real in California?
It's like the Highway 1 of Spain.
Right? I don't know. Well, yeah, it actually I think does parallel an actual like highway, but it's people have done this for generations. I don't know how long it goes back, but anyway, my girlfriend's parents, Janelle's parents, did this last year,
cool.
You just kind of walk from town to town. Stay in like hostels usually, kind of just with other people who are doing this.
Yeah.
There are like hundreds of people on the road sort of in your vicinity usually. So you run into people and get to meet people and talk to them as you're kind of going on this trail. They met some people who ended up becoming like really good friends. And I don't know, it just seems like, at the end of it, you end up in Madrid, I think, along the way. I don't think Barcelona's on the way, but they're just, you're just kind of walking through cities occasionally, but then you're also out in the countryside. It seems like a nice balance of like hiking and
that's the best, most relevant answer we've gotten.
That's all I got.
All right,
you did it.
Evan Parker writes, "What is your favorite Halloween candy?" This is a Jake question for sure.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, I don't know. I should know. I should know.
Come on.
I don't.
Jake, what's your favorite birthday candy?
What's your favorite
answer.
Tuesday candy?
What's my favorite candy?
Well, Jake's birthday is Halloween.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah, right.
I don't know. As a kid, I was never a big fan of. I only know what I don't like when it comes to Halloween, which is when you just get a small chocolate bar. It's the worst.
I was totally fine with that. A big change for me when I was a kid, I did not like Snickers bars because I didn't like.
Yeah,
I didn't like and still don't really like nuts in things.
But a Snickers bar is great.
Now I actually love a Snickers bar.
Yeah, it's the peanut butter jelly sandwich of the candy bar world.
It is.
As an adult, I totally enjoy a Snickers bar.
Yeah, as a kid, I always just wanted the weird candy. Like my favorite Halloween candy was like a surprise, basically. And now there's no surprises left in the world, so I don't really know how to answer the question.
There are lots of surprises left in the world, but they're all terrible.
Well, there's one which is what happens when you die. That's all that's really left for me, Chris. Hopefully, I'll be introduced to a new candy.
Nick, do you got anything here?
I like Kit Kats.
Oh, I loved Kit Kats because you got multiple of them, and that was exciting.
Anything you get two
Yeah,
of.
Twix.
Yep.
Yeah. Except when you get like the Twix that's half of one Twix, and it's like this is nothing to do with the point of a Twix.
Yep.
Kit Kats, because you can share them. I mean, that was their ad campaign, right? Was give me a break, whatever. I remember there was when I was working at Apple Computer, there was a Kit Kat, which was like in the early 2000s. There was a Kit Kat variant that had come out in the tradition of everyone making variants of all of their candy all the time. That was just called the Kit Kat Big Bar.
Oh no!
And it was just
I remember
Kit
this
Kat Big Bar.
It was just
That's a good collection of syllables.
The bull bite, morph
Yeah.
mouth or whatever the fuck. But the Kit Kat Big Bar was just one giant Kit Kat.
Oh.
And I remember I was coming back from the Apple cafeteria with my coworker, and we saw someone order that. And then I think it was me who said this. I just said, "Oh, that's the Kit Kat for assholes." And then the guy kind of turned around and then walked straight upstairs to what was Steve Jobs' office.
Oh my God!
And obviously he was not going to report me, including this works with Steve Jobs. But I just went, yo, no.
Wow.
That's my most potent Kit Kat memory.
Hopefully he was taking it to Steve Jobs.
Hopefully he was. Steve Jobs would fucking eat the Kit Kat for assholes.
Man, the Kit Kat for assholes. That seems like that's like, given the interior of a Kit Kat being kind of a delicate wafer structure, it seems like something that big wouldn't be the ideal form of.
And
a Kit
yet,
Kat.
New Jersey's greatest candy and flavor scientists were not deterred and made it happen, Chris.
Is a Kit Kat from New Jersey?
I don't know. I assume that all of that weird flavor shit comes from New Jersey because I think that's at least like I think it's New Jersey is where the like most notable like flavor research
really?
fast food lab shit is, but I don't know if that's true.
Huh.
I remember hearing that at some point and it just stuck
Could
in
be
my head.
because neighboring Pennsylvania is where Hershey's is. So, with this combined power of Pennsylvania and New Jersey,
we could
have
create the
gross
Kit Kat
candy.
for assholes.
Yeah. Okay. Tanner Huggins writes, I just moved across the country. What is the first thing I should buy for my new apartment?
Wait, moved across the country in what direction and what country?
Irrelevant.
Does that actually matter for this question? Do you have seriously different answers depending on which direction
possibly, but yeah.
he or she moved?
Yeah, if you move from the north of a place, if you move from the, like, if you, I've just moved from Chicago to Austin, Texas. I've moved across the country. Like, you're probably going to want to buy slightly different
horse.
stuff.
Okay,
Yeah.
I guess. I mean,
I don't want
I think the
Spurs.
question is, like, are there generalized apartment,
Sure.
like,
Apparently, if you
first
move to
thing.
LA, you have to buy a refrigerator. I didn't know that.
you don't come with refrigerators
Apparently, like that. At least Erin, who works with us, she's moving to LA, and she said that every place she looked on Craigslist didn't have a fridge because it's just the culture in LA to move your fridge with you.
What?
So she had to buy a fucking fridge.
That's bizarre.
Is that because they're, like, too
So if you
picky
move
about
across the
their
country
fridges
from
and
New
they're
York to
like,
Los
"Oh,
Angeles, you got to buy a fridge. See, there you fucking
fair
go.
enough.
Wow.
Did Claire have that experience too?
I don't know.
What the hell?
It's very strange.
I knew there was a reason I didn't like LA.
Smoke detector.
They have those. Is that
Not always. I didn't have one when I moved to
Really?
my apartment. Yeah.
That's not that. Well,
That's not legal.
That seems
It's not
illegal.
legal.
That seems illegal. Yeah.
But if you don't have
what
one,
you
you want to
need to
buy
get is
it.
a new landlord who adheres
Yeah.
to housing code.
Well,
yeah, buy a lawyer. God, what is the first thing?
Oh, Derek Liu confirms in chat no fridges in LA.
that's
What the
so
hell?
dumb. What a dumb place to live.
It is pretty dumb. Let's be honest.
If you move to LA, the first thing you should buy is an airplane ticket to somewhere else.
What is the first thing you should buy for an apartment generally? Toilet paper? You're going to want that.
Yep.
Andrew Dice writes, in the realm of self-hoisting, I feel like accidentally soaking yourself in water is its own subgenre. If you thumbs have a favorite memory of such a self-own, I'd love to hear of your most choice moist hoistings.
Wait. Okay.
I reject that.
Gross. I definitely have a hoisting that I accidentally perpetuated on someone else that happened in the water. So it's sort of 1 degree away from each of the stipulations of this question. When I was young, my brother, who's my younger brother, we were in just like a municipal pool in Pennsylvania, actually, visiting my grandmother or aunt and uncle or someone, and he was like, we had just eaten and gotten into the pool.
Wait, he said this? Sorry. He
No.
was like, we had just eaten.
Oh, sorry, no. I was going to say...
Sorry,
when
the ambiguity
No, I know,
of Californian English.
Yeah, I did a bad job because I'm from a place that encourages that. So we were both in the pool, and he had just eaten, or possibly we both had. I don't remember. And we were playing some kind of like tag game or something. And I remember I was sort of running over to him, and it was in kind of the shallow-ish end of the pool, so kind of shallow enough that you can sort of, you know how in the pool, if you want to run faster, you can really do sort of a high step.
Yeah.
And even just the amount that your knees get out of the water is enough to propel you faster because you're not fully constrained.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was running over to him, and then he wasn't looking at me, and he sort of turned 90 degrees to face me, and then as he did that, my knee went into his stomach, and as that happened, it just pushed up everything in his stomach, which then came out of his mouth.
Well,
and it was like
this kid and made him barf in the pool?
Yes.
Oh,
it was like a mechanical reaction where it's like,
Jesus.
as I did that,
Holy
it
shit.
just
It
went
was just like a
Yeah.
1-to-1?
1-to-1.
Wow.
Like
yeah.
just like the pump handle, basically.
Yep,
Oh,
yep.
gross.
And it all ended up
That's
all
really
over the pool.
disgusting.
God,
They
well,
had to
yeah,
evacuate the
everyone
pool.
involved was hoisted in that
Yeah, I guess
situation.
actually, you know what? It was it was an absolute self-hoisting.
Yeah, you need a kid and then you got barfed on in a pool.
Yeah.
So,
So that's my moist hoisting.
fucking Christ.
My choice
That's
moist
very
hoisting.
Yeah,
intense.
that might be the choicest, moistest.
Yeah, I don't know if I can top that.
Yeah, that was
Hoistest.
doubly moist, I guess.
Yeah, wow.
A twice moist. Choice
Oh,
moist.
Twice moist.
Twice the twice moist.
Happy,
Moist.
happy twice moist.
Yeah, I just spill things on myself all the time.
Jake is a serial moist self-hoister.
But not with cereal.
maybe one time.
I'm sure I've spilled cereal on myself.
Matt asks, what was the worst apartment you ever lived in or roommate you shared a space with? I used to live with someone who was late on paying bills. Nick and I have had that
Oh,
experience.
yes. Yeah, I thought you were eyeing me
But
specifically.
no,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
you.
No, I
but
know
had
what you're
a
talking
but
about.
had a Loot Crate subscription and filled our shared living areas with more and more inflatable superhero merchandise each month. Oh no!
Oh, God.
So you know where part of your rent money's going? It's
Yeah.
going to this garbage that's filling up your living room.
This episode is brought to you by Loot Crate.
Yeah. we were once sponsored by Loot Crate on Idle Thumbs,
Yeah.
and we realized after doing it we don't. This isn't a sponsor that makes sense for us, so we canceled the advertising campaign, and they never stopped sending Idle Thumbs Loot Crates.
They finally did when we moved offices. Like
No, that's not true.
I feel like we haven't gotten one in a couple months.
We got them for a year after moving offices.
That's true.
They somehow found our new office location, even though we were no longer, and had only been for like a week, had been sponsored by them. They somehow found our
The
new
legend of
office
the
and
Loot
like
Crates.
transferred
Like, just like-
the Loot Crate subscription.
Oh no! Yeah, you're right. Because when we moved, it might be because the people in our old office.
Like contacted them?
Yeah, because I remember
Oh,
they
yeah. We don't want
they
these to
got
send
one,
them
and I
on.
think they said this is for you guys along with the rest of our mail. And then Loot Crates started showing up at our office again at
Yeah.
our new
Good.
office. So that law firm that moved into the old Thumbs Campo office was
Yeah.
like, why are we getting this Loot Crate?
Yeah.
They really wanted that like Groot Funko figurine,
They wanted that jokey.
that jokey T-shirt,
Shirt.
that oven mitt.
What was this question about?
The question was, what's the worst roommate experience or
Oh.
living situation? Worst apartment or roommate?
I lived in a really bad apartment when I first moved out of the dorms. Like it was a dumpy dump with
Yeah.
a landlady who was not cool and really just a bad person. And all that we used to just
Where was that?
in Santa Cruz.
Oh.
We used to try to sort of passively troll her whenever any inspections would happen, and so we would like
Oh, I remember this.
we would like arrange all of the furniture in our apartment into the most impossible maze with like a bookshelf like 3 feet from the front door that you'd have to walk around, and then the recliner was out, and you'd have to just like, it's like how if you've accidentally built your video game level a little bit too short to traverse, you suddenly just put a bunch of S curves and like alternate, like just stack stuff as densely as you can. So it took like minutes to just get through the living room to the shitty bedrooms in the
That's
back.
really funny.
But it fucking backfired because she had no taste, obviously, because she ran this dumpy apartment for college students with no money. She's like, I just love you guys' decorating choices. I love the look of this place. It looks really homey. And we're like,
it's the most self-hoisted.
God damn it. Yeah.
You ruined your own apartment.
We ruined our own apartment just to make this lady's life inconvenient for like 3 minutes, and then she fucking loved it and thought it was like not. She didn't understand what it was. She just was like, this is an interesting layout.
Yeah.
As she's like extracting her limbs.
Herself.
Yeah, she's doing the stupid like laser beam heist through our apartment, but it's just like, oh, it's so nice, so interesting.
My worst experience, I was like, I went about a year after I moved back to San Francisco from Boston, where I didn't have an apartment because it's impossible to afford an apartment here because it's terrible. And I couch surfed with friends as long as I could. And then once I basically like overextended myself out of the generosity of everyone I knew who had a couch to spare, I started just getting the cheapest possible short-term living situations I could on Craigslist. In total, this was about a year that I spent doing this, and it was a fucking nightmare. But the worst one was this guy's. This was like the point at which I'm like, I needed the cheapest. I was like, cash situation was getting bad, and I needed the cheapest place I could stay. So for I think 2 weeks almost, maybe it was a week and a half, down in Glen Park, I stayed in some guy's kitchen, and he had a futon that I would unfold and put on his kitchen floor, and it took up the entire kitchen. I mean, it was a small apartment, and so I slept on his kitchen. And he basically lived and worked at home, as far as I can tell, and was like super Christian and had Christian stuff all over the place, which is fine. Like that's totally fine. But it was like to the point that it was very like overbearing and like assertive in its omnipresence and intensity. And he had all these like rules about when I had to be out of the apartment and back in, and I was like only too happy because sleeping in the kitchen, literally like the first place you go when you wake up in your apartment is like into the kitchen to make coffee or whatever. So I would basically every morning get up at 6 a.m., fold up the futon and put it away, get out of there, and then I would arrive back to the apartment as late as I possibly could, so that I was essentially spending like 6 hours a day in there, and then the rest of the day I would just be anywhere else because it was so like uncomfortable and weird, and the guy was like just very like not personable or anything. It was a fucking intense experience. So that was my least pleasant one of those.
Nick?
I don't have a great story.
Oh.
Daniel writes, the musical Roads...
That means you were the roommate, by the way. Let's just be clear.
Yeah, probably true.
Daniel writes, the musical Roads, the Stayin' Alive piano cover, and the fact that I sometimes hear a human voice in a single guitar riff from David Bowie's Sweet Thing begs the question, how could a beleaguered human resistance use any methods such as these to communicate with each other in a way undetectable to our future robot overlords? Is there some better method? Thanks.
I think you could just communicate in CAPTCHAs.
No, they're learning that, dude. We're hoisting ourselves. The point of CAPTCHAs.
We could develop a better CAPTCHA, Chris.
Yeah, it's a Cold War. I mean, the more CAPTCHAs we make, the better they're going to get at solving CAPTCHAs. Yeah. Eventually, they're just going to get good at solving new CAPTCHAs.
They're going to make their own CAPTCHAs.
Yeah, they're going to make CAPTCHAs for us.
I think
prove you're a robot. And then it'll just be a binary code or something.
It'll resolve to me.
Yeah, that's true. It'll be prove you're a robot, and it'll just be incomprehensible garbage. It'll just be nothing. It'll just be a bunch of weird syllables and sounds and images that mean nothing to me. I mean, I guess in this musical one, I think what you would probably do is you would play clips. You'd play recognizable bits of music from songs, and then the communication would be you're making reference to the title of that song. So you'd have to string together.
You could figure that out.
You think a robot would be able to figure that out?
I think so. I think it would eventually start doing title lookups and then it would go, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I could form a sentence out of these.
Yeah, I guess. I feel like you'd have a good head start, though, on that one.
Yeah. You might eventually have to... Have either of you watched much Star Trek The Next Generation?
A little bit.
I have a few episodes.
There's an episode that is notably praised
Darmok
and derided.
and whatever,
where there's they encounter a culture who speaks almost exclusively in shorthand to represent, like they'll tell you the name of a story, and that is shorthand for the lesson of that story or the method of communication of it or something. So like they basically speak entirely in references to their own past. I can't remember any of the phrases.
Is that equivalent to a human being sort of saying sour grapes and they're referring to the Aesop fable, and then you understand that when you say sour grapes, I get it, I know that reference, and they're talking about being sort of bitter about a kind of
sort of it becomes that like to a point of extreme specificity, but yeah, we're like but there's a negotiation between people, and because that's what half of Star Trek: The Next Generation is two different cultures who disagree, and then Captain Picard has to go and mediate it. But yeah, it's speaking entirely in through analogy,
illusion.
and illusion. And I suspect that that's a way that you could possibly keep robots out for a while until they just learn if it's a one-to-one like that, that eventually just becomes its own language that they can understand, and they don't need to know what the analogies are to. They can just learn how to speak it.
There was an interesting. You guys know the video game studio, the Chinese Room, that they made Dear Esther and Amnesia Machine for Pigs, and then most recently a VR game, I guess, called So Let Us Melt. Do you guys know what the Chinese Room means?
No. I
did not know this until I just looked it up like a week ago because I was kind of curious. The Chinese Room refers to a sort of philosophical thought experiment in which a person is in a sealed room, and then there's like sort of a window that you can put documents into, and on the other end there's a window that they can put documents out of. And the idea is that in that room they have enough like reference materials to be able to sort of make connections between Chinese questions and answers, like written Chinese questions and answers. And if someone passes a bunch of questions written in Chinese into the room, this person, like given enough time, can just cross-reference the characters and create a totally appropriate answer and then pass it back out. But this person has no actual understanding of meaning of anything they're writing. They're literally just referencing a bunch of stuff and then putting it out. And the point of the experiment is basically this is essentially what software does. Do we actually claim that the computer understands Chinese? Like, not really, right? That person doesn't understand Chinese. If you took away all of their stuff, I mean, even not taking away all their stuff, they still don't actually know what they're saying. You know, they couldn't tell you like what they're telling anyone. And so it's sort of this very, Jake, to your point about the computer solving the code but not actually knowing what any of it means, but they don't have to know what it means.
So you're saying that there could be, so even if you spoke in the language from that Darmok episode of Star Trek, which by the way made chat go insane and just start talking entirely in analogy and quotes from that episode, that the AI computer menace would eventually basically give themselves or be able to develop the Chinese Room reference book for this and just have one robot that sits there and listens to everything. And
right? It's just basically a bunch of references to things.
Dangerous Doctor in chat says that you may have slightly overcomplicated your picture of the Chinese Room because when you use the phrase reference material, because I think a Chinese Room actually is there's a person inside who has a book that just given any possible input tells them the exact output. So they don't have to you don't have to do any research.
That's what I meant to say. Sorry. Yeah. That's what I meant to describe, but I may have, as they said, I may have overcomplicated it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thumbs the stream ruined is the that's a very good Darmok sentence.
Mickey P writes, I noticed you have an interest or perhaps a love-hate relationship in goofy, funny domain names. Do you have a favorite, and if so, what is it?
The whole point is that there are basically infinite bad ones, so it's hard to have a favorite.
Yeah.
Of ours, I still like idlethumbs.casino. Actually, no. My favorite idlethumbs domain name is easily Goaty.cx.
Oh, yeah. Goaty.cx, which we haven't used
too.
in several years, but it's a very good domain name.
Yeah, no, that's the best.
Still active, I believe.
I hope so.
Probably for 2015 or 2014 or something.
Did I renew it? I did. 2013, get fucked.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Josh Renish writes, do any of you suffer from imposter syndrome?
Yes.
And if so, what helps you mitigate it?
Nothing.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
I honestly, this is going to sound like false modesty, but like I seriously think that the prevalence of discussion around the term imposter syndrome has led to this like kind of cultural meme where if you actually express any legitimate like doubt or concern about your own abilities, people just like by default just go, imposter syndrome. Like,
Yeah. It's funny. I'm
it
actually.
makes it hard for us true actual imposters to like express our self-doubt and concern.
Yeah.
I don't know.
What were you going to say, Nick?
Oh no, I'm not aware of this as sort of a meme.
Oh really?
I'm vaguely aware of the term, but I have not seen the sort of like prevalence of it personally.
I feel like it is prevalent, but I don't know.
I think it is. Oh man, Chad also was pointing out that Waypoint, the Vice gaming site, is a home of good domains. This is a very good domain. I'll read it really quick.
Sure.
games.games.games.austinwalkergames.games/games.games.
Very good.
So
I mean, really, that's just what is the last one?
AustinWalkerGames.games, which is also a good domain
That's also
name.
good, but yeah. Effectively, it's just
I feel like those guys
But
are
that is very good.
carrying the torch of a bunch of
Oh, yeah.
shitty ass domains that point to good things online.
Definitely. Ian McNichol writes, do you believe there will be a sophistication distinction between video games in the future, such as the distinction between literature and fiction in prose? Not sure I quite understand that distinction.
What was the first? Sorry.
Do you believe there will be a sophistication distinction between video games in the future, such as the distinction between literature and fiction in prose? Again, it seems weird because literature is
I mean,
a subset of fiction. I mean, I guess fiction is just an incredibly broad. There's not really a distinction.
I think what they mean is like similar to saying I went and saw a movie versus I went and saw a film. You know,
it's very fuzzy and subjective.
Yeah, I think that this question is very tough to answer because of that. Because
if so, the question concludes: if so, what do you think the literature of video games might be called?
You mean serious games? Sorry,
walking simulators.
Yeah, you mean walking simulators? I feel like people have tried either like from an encouraging or derisive place to come up with alternate names for video games to either imply that it's like
interactive entertainment.
Yeah, they're like either trying to claim that there's some sort of fancy pants thing they don't like, or trying to like elevate the thing that they themselves are making.
It's felt like a dead end to me.
I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, if it did, it would be because there actually was a crazy cultural shift in gaming or interactive entertainment or whatever the fuck. But I don't think it's going to come internally from people who are making games or people who are critically writing about games. I think there has to be an actual taste change in taste in the broader sort of culture of people consuming entertainment before you'll be able to latch onto it. Like I don't think you can make it happen at this point.
Yeah, I also think that the terminology is sort of irrelevant. As someone who, like, I pay a lot of attention. Like, I'm not as much as some people, but I'm definitely generally up on what happens in the literature world. Like, I keep up with the New York Times Book Review and listen to their podcast each week and so on, things like that. And if you pay enough attention to that stuff, there is obviously some kind of, again, very fuzzy dividing line between like what gets covered in the just mainline reviews in the New York Times Book Review in fiction versus what gets covered in like a genre specific column. Like they have a mystery column review, for instance, in there, and like there's obviously a distinction there. Like one of those kinds of books is written specifically for people of this genre who really like deep dive into that and read tons of them, and then the other is like if you like reading literary fiction generally, like the premise of this book might be any number of a different thing, but they don't like explicitly people who pay attention to that stuff, I don't think go around verbalizing that difference in a specific way with modifiers like this, because you don't really need to. Like, you just kind of generally know, like, well, this is the kind of stuff I read, and this is the sources I pay attention to. Like, it's less about coming up with a phrase to distinguish them, and more just, well, what publications that cover this stuff are you reading? Because that, by implication, is going to have they're just going to be talking about different books, and that is the thing. That is one thing I think that games just cannot currently support right now. I mean, the enthusiast press, any one enthusiast press outlet covers everything, basically, because for the most part, it doesn't need to be any other way. Like, there are a lot of different game genres, but they're largely evaluated through fairly similar kind of modes of discussion, even though the games in a lot of cases have way less in common with each other than, say, mystery fiction and literary fiction.
I think that's actually less true in the case of like YouTube-based criticism.
That's probably
true. YouTube-based commentary, because I think that people go to those people because they're a specialty voice of some kind.
That's a good point.
Even if it's a specialty voice of just screaming at a horror game, you know?
Yeah.
But
yeah, that's a good point.
Actually, also in podcasts, I think that differentiation happens. I mean, I say that as
not as much,
but there are. I mean, I guess. Okay, fine. 3 Moves Ahead exists. The end.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking of as well. But there aren't.
Yeah, I guess there aren't a ton of things like that. I bet that if you just look like communities that have been around long enough and are specific enough, like Text Adventures /IF, probably is the sort of place that has that sort of thing. But
oh, sure, yeah, totally.
Or like, but yeah, it's. Yeah. I think fewer people in general. Well, the reason that I said, YouTube, is because the sentence that I was about to say, unquestioned, was I think fewer people in general who play games care about commentary and criticism on games. And then I had to check that and say, fewer people care about traditional sort of classic, like published written criticism, but
right.
A bazillion people care what people have to say about games. It's just of a different form.
Yeah, and that actually,
New York Times and video games crossover is not as high as New York Times and literature.
And I think that's actually honestly one reason that the distinction this person postulates is not that likely, because, I mean, to what I was saying earlier, much of that distinction really is how those things are discussed. And I think the thing that creates that distinction is like the desire to discuss the things in a certain way, and that may just not be what the video game audience wants to. I mean, every few years, someone else tries to like kickstart or launch a new sort of more thoughtful video game criticism outlet or publication or whatever, and it just never really, like, either it takes off, but then eventually just sort of turns into Kotaku, basically, or another site in that vein, or it just goes away. Like, it just isn't really something that there seems to be a big appetite for.
Yep.
Brian Bannon writes, any update on the Patreon postcards? Seems like there's been an issue with the printer not getting back to you quickly enough, but we haven't heard anything in a while now.
Yeah, I found out that my account at the printer was totally fucking owned, and I was negligent in checking on it for a long time. But I have finally spoken to a human being on a telephone, and all of the garbage that was vomited into my account that I couldn't wade through has been removed. And I've also printed this. I've printed last month's postcards, which are the August ones. So those should be going out, within this week. And we're most of the way done with September's as well. So those should hopefully be going out in the next couple weeks.
Cool.
And then we'll actually be kind of caught up, except then we have to do October's.
Time to write those stories, Nick.
Were we ambitious with our postcard plan that is secretly a mural that you build while secretly containing agency-free interactive fiction on the back that is split into 9 discrete storylines? Yes, we were too ambitious. Hopefully the end result will entertain people. One note about that for people who are in the postcard tier. We realized, or I realized at least, that the postcards that we've been sending out, we offer a catch-up pack, a catch-up packet, if you will. You can up your pledge in any given month to a slightly higher amount, and we'll send you all of the postcards that have ever been sent, so you can sort of catch up. I realized that none of the postcards actually have the month that they were sent on them. So if you try to assemble the interactive fiction story on the back in order, when you don't have the order,
you have to infer it from the actual story.
It's very hard to do.
Difficult, I know.
But the September postcard is going to include a key to help you understand the month order. So if you catch up now, know that when you get your September postcard, you will have a canonical order for your version of the story.
Although, true to form, even that will be
it will be partly obscured and in a stupid form. It's not. Yes, it's still going to require a little bit of sussing out what to do with it. But I'm trying to make it fun. But I realized that was a point of frustration for some people, and we were fixing that.
Yep.
So you have one key to help you assemble this obtuse, stupid mess that we're sending you in the mail.
All right. J.D. Cohen writes, which is your favorite Kraft Foods brand cheese product?
Oh, one more thing before we get off postcards. The Idle Thumbs Reader Slack, which is a Slack for just Thumbs community folks that you can find in our forums, has a channel called Postcard Conspiracy that is for discussing and assembling the postcard stuff. Yep. Anyway, you were reading a question.
Yes, J.D. Cohen says, what is your favorite Kraft Foods brand cheese product? Popular choices might be Easy Cheese, Cheese Whiz, or Velveeta. Or are you more of a 30-pound case of Kraft American cheese in loaf form kind of guy?
Wait, sorry, Easy Cheese and Cheese Whiz are by the same company? That seems very... I don't know if I believe that.
Absolutely no idea.
Is there a canned cheese monopoly?
Well, they might just own multiple companies that ostensibly... the other day through the New York Times crossword, I learned that Adidas owns... I actually don't remember. Adidas owns another major athletic shoe brand, and I was shocked. It felt I always, companies that just totally.
That's like how every glasses and sunglasses company is actually owned by the same company.
Yeah, and every beer, etc. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Or every sort of.
I'm just going to go for it and say I love myself some Easy Cheese, but I never eat it because it's the grossest, most vile thing to ever purchase or own in your house or put on anything.
Yeah.
But
they're both Kraft. Cheese Whiz and Easy Cheese.
Stupid.
Are both.
My friend Billy he was my friend in junior high I worked on the yearbook with. He lived with his grandparents, who at the time seemed and probably were very old, and they introduced me to many grandparent lifestyle choices. Like they had an Airstream trailer, and they used to go to like Gray Eagle, California, and trailer park or like trailer camp every summer. Definitely never did that as a kid. They had like a crazy, stupid 50s house with little like buttons to press to talk in the different rooms. But whatever. I ate a lot of sandwiches with too many mayo when I visited him, but I definitely also was introduced to the deliciousness of putting some Easy Cheese on a wheat thin, and I never buy Easy Cheese anymore because it grosses me out. But sometimes you have like the taste memory of it and go, oh man, what I want right now is to go buy a can of disgusting canned spray cheese.
Did you say, by the way, you had a sandwich that has too many mayo on it?
Too much mayo. If I said too many mayo.
3 mayo, please.
To me.
Too many mayo.
There's a picture of this Kraft American
Reebok
cheese case. This is a case of 6 5-pound loaves of Kraft American cheese.
Is that loaves?
Loaves.
Cheese loaves.
Honestly, I like the pre-sliced
a slice of American cheese.
I enjoy it, I have to say. I don't buy it ever, but if I have like a burger that has that on it, I'm totally into it.
American cheese is the only burger choice in my opinion.
Yeah.
I was a cheddar person for a really long time, but man, there's nothing better than American cheese.
I think I'm with you on that.
It melts properly. That's the reason.
Congealed cheese on a burger is gross, I have to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a burger with
You want it to melt its way into the burger
I want it to all melt together,
I had a burger with like fancy-ass like Stilton cheese on it a couple of weeks ago, and it was vile.
I had a phase in my 20s where I was into like fancy blue cheese burgers and stuff, and I'm not into it anymore. Give me a diner burger with American cheese.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about the mushroom Swiss burger. Well, it's about something that sounds like mushroom Swiss burger.
Michael Sawan writes, the other thing is the Cheese Whiz is one of the sort of two disputed original Philly cheesesteak cheeses.
Yes.
And I'm sometimes I'm in the mood for that on a Philly cheesesteak, and sometimes I'm not. But when I am in the mood for it, it's great. And that's actually I think the only time in my life I've ever had Cheese Whiz is on a Philly cheesesteak. Okay, Michael Sawan writes, this is a very video gamey question. Feel free to answer it on Idle Thumbs instead of the Ruination cast. All right, well, let's ask it and see if we want to Shunt it off to that.
Stream exclusive.
It says, think about a game as a collection of systems. Is it the game's responsibility to make the player engage with the systems in interesting and meaningful ways, or should the player take it upon themselves to interact with these systems? The new game Heat Signature is a good example of this, as it offers a lot of interesting ways to complete a level, but in at least the first few hours that I've played, it has not challenged me to use anything but the most basic tools, so I am not finding the game interesting. Is that the game's fault or my own failing?
Well, we are going to talk about Heat Signature, so...
Do you want to should we hold off until we get to Idle Thumbs?
Yeah, maybe.
Because we're recording that right after this episode.
Yeah, I guess so. This can become an Idle Thumbs reader mail.
Okay.
Yeah.
Listen to the October Idle Thumbs, which will come out in just a few days for this. Robert Hoffman says, what's old famous Vanneman up to these days? If he were to ever return to the show, would you consider having him spend the first 15 episodes in a semi-catatonic state, occasionally repeating the last two words spoken to him before dramatically regaining his faculties upon hearing the name Jay Allard? When I started asking this question, Jake immediately got up and started messing with it. He's switching the paintings around, so the Sean Vanneman basketball portrait is up behind Nick Brecken. Sean strikes me as the least likely to want to engage in that kind of stunt.
Well, I mean, we've actually been doing that for the last, 100 or so episodes of Idle Thumbs. People just haven't noticed.
That's true. We just haven't mentioned Jay Allard recently.
Yeah, one day he will awaken.
Yeah. Right now, Sean's on a hunting trip.
That's true. Yeah, I'm excited about it because it means Sean will come back. Hopefully,
I know,
with some collection of
venison. I think.
Of the most artisanal meat known to man.
I'm looking
meat
forward
from
to
the
that.
Animal you killed yourself.
Yeah, he said he's going to bring back 50. He's going to try and bring back 50 pounds of butchered meat.
Wow.
So I'm actually looking forward to trying that. Spencer Hayden.
We'll eat that on our social eating channel, which we don't really publicize.
Yeah, we're trying to build up its cred organically without leaning on the Idle Thumbs brand.
Yeah.
So when that overtakes our video game and bullshit robot related efforts,
when our video game robot fecal network has died, our food network will survive.
Yeah. Spencer Hayden writes, inspired by Nick's insights from the journal his mom kept, my wife and I decided to undertake a similar effort. As soon as we knew what we were going to name our daughter, only 3 months into the pregnancy, we opened an email address for her and have begun writing her emails on the first of every month. The first 6 months were all before she was born and mostly consist of very limited interaction we had with her in the womb and what we were doing to prepare for her arrival. We included some small additional details, world events, and bits of our everyday lives. Since her being born, we've continued to compose a mail on or around the first of each month and send it to her email address, along with small updates about what she's accomplished in the past month and what parts of her personality are coming out. We've also been sending her emails every time she has a first, because there are many in the early stages of her life. We're only 5 months in, but we hope to keep this until she reaches college graduation age, at which point we'll hand over the keys to the email address and let her read the biography we've created. That's
hopefully she's just like,
idea.
ugh, emails from my parents, trash, archive, ugh.
Hopefully she opens it up and is like, God, these targeted ads are real precise. How did this happen?
Oh my God,
response,
you're right.
ha ha ha.
Yeah. Response, lame, mom.
Yeah.
Google is just going to know so much about this person's life before they ever open their email address.
What are some insights or bits of minutia you would like to have seen recorded about your lives, or what have you read written about yourselves in a similar style that you've found most notable? Man, in a similar style? I don't know. I've definitely never had anything like that.
I mean, my answer is obvious. So,
what?
Well, no, I just mean
you have this actual thing.
So there's no I mean,
we got to get more of those journal entries on the podcast.
Yeah. In a similar style. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
LinkedIn recommendations.
Yeah, we set up a LinkedIn for our daughter when she was still 5 months away from being born to really just get a leg up on.
She's an expert in eating and pooping. Ha ha ha. Being a great friend
for adorable kicking in the womb.
Yeah.
To the point of the important if true question last week about being able, or about ending up babysitting your 10-year-old self, I wish that I had actually kept, like, I occasionally was encouraged by my parents to write my thoughts in a journal.
Oh, yeah.
And I did like 3 and then abandoned it about every 3 years.
I had that
Man, what if I had actually done it? It would be so good to have.
I have.
Whoops.
Oh, you do? Really?
Yeah,
You kept
I've got
a journal?
a couple journals that are from like when I was 10.
Yeah.
Oh, like your live journal?
No, not that. Like
Okay.
like a written, like in an actual journal.
Got to bring that in too.
I really wish
We
I
just need to
hadn't kept a live
expose
journal.
all aspects
no,
of
I
Nick
just have
Brecken's young
everything.
life
Yeah.
to tease apart. It's fascinating that you have so much of that documentation. I have nothing like that at all. And I also, like you, Jake, I regret it. It's because it's one of those things that you can't ever then. If you didn't do it when you were young, it's
Right.
I mean,
Yeah,
I could just do it now, I guess. But it's
That
like
doesn't count.
Yeah.
Although, when you're really old, if assuming we all live to be really old, you'd want this one too.
yeah, maybe I should
So
start. Maybe I have no excuse.
Yeah, well, I say that, but then I do regret not having a journal as a little kid, but I regret having a live journal in my early 20s. So,
Yeah,
I
that's
don't know.
different.
yeah.
I had a live journal as well. I guess all 3 of us did.
yeah.
That's such a stupid artifact of that time.
bad.
Yeah.
I wish that I had a
There are
place to
probably
pin my
other-
thoughts that was also a performative act for my friends.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's what makes it worthless.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There are probably other like internet related materials that I wish I had, but I can't think.
Glad I've got all my tweets.
Ugh.
Yeah, right? I know. You're right? That's crazy. If we live to be when we're really old, I assume that Twitter, whether or not the service is like what it is now, I assume that it will continue to exist, if in nothing else, an archived form.
Yeah, I'm going to be able to
So-
look back to that time in 2008. I revisited my favorite cafe from when I was in college, and they took my favorite thing off their menu, and I misspelled it. I think that's my first tweet.
You're going to be able to revisit that time that you saw that kid in Target sing BRWN to the tune of Bingo.
Yeah.
And then you sent that kid an email saying, "Look at this tweet when you're college age."
And that kid was Nick Brecken. Nick Brecken's mom. Remember that journal entry where she was like, Nick just really thinks brown is spelled BRWN. Weird kid. We had such high hopes for him.
Yeah.
I saw a tweet about Nick. That's what his mom would say to that.
Yeah.
Good thing tweets are going to be safe forever. I'm going to start a Twitter account for my future kid and start sending them tweets.
Oh, no. Ugh.
I'll like quote tweet them some Trump stuff so they can see the signs of the times.
You know, it's like that's like when this person was writing in, I was just thinking like, wow, you're writing world events in this? That sucks. That's a stupid thing to have to like. Imagine going off to college and reading this garbage.
I actually like that stuff in my mom's journal, though. I like knowing.
That's true. Your mom wrote about like Reagan being elected, and like that was actually really fascinating.
That stuff
You're
was
right.
because it like gives you a window into just like what they were thinking and going through at the time. Even though it's shitty or whatever.
Yeah. No, that actually was valuable.
It makes it less of sort of like a boring puff kind of just like you had a great day today or whatever. It's just like
no, it's true.
Like you were a mom just
also,
fucking in the 80s like just trying to make a
right, but
dinner.
it's also
like it's
just, but like her being bummed about Reagan being elected doesn't it doesn't have any of the potency for us reading it now that either it would for her when she was writing it or that we feel now about events. It feels like a historical like footnote, and so I guess it's actually a good thing to do.
I guess.
Carrie Nichols writes, your conversation about Tacoma on Idle Thumbs 311 and the way a similar system could be used for other games left me hankering for a West Wing game. Set during a single X-hour period, you would be free to roam the halls of the West Wing, picking up the various plot lines of the episode as you follow different walk and talks, lurk in different offices, or track single characters. Admittedly, I'm not sure of the central conceit that you could base this around. I fear the easy option would be another Gainer favorite, Ghosts. But I wondered what license you would like.
Wait a minute.
You play as the ghost of Teddy Roosevelt.
Like
stalking the halls of the West Wing, listening to really interesting, pithy. Like
it's a West Wing season 6 episode, and you play as the ghost of Aaron Sorkin, wandering around, sort of going, ugh.
Yeah,
that's not what I would have. That's not
right,
what
every time
Toby
you
would
hit a
say.
button.
Toby would never say that.
Yeah.
But I wondered what license you would like to see made into a game, and what sort of game system would it employ. Well, before we talk about that, this person's West Wing pitch is just what it would have been if they made a West Wing game in the late 90s.
Like a West Wing CD-ROM game?
Yes, it would have been an FMV game where you like sort of click around from room to room, and there's sort of pre-recorded transitions that show it's like Myst style, but except that you actually follow walk and talks.
Oh my God, you Myst style clicking walk and talk through a hallway of it like cross dissolving, but in each clip. You would hear like a little bit of whatever Toby and CJ talking, and then they would freeze, and then you could pivot around and look at someone else walking down a different hallway.
They got like 75% of the cast, but like not Martin Sheen. They got Toby's definitely in there.
I mean, the good version of this would just be like The Last Express. You know what I mean? Where it actually is like, a functional, like real-time clock. He was saying like an hour block, right? So it's just you play that hour out.
Right, but it would be like The Last Express if it came out during the time of the West Wing, where it would be like of the era of the X-Files CD-ROM game, basically.
Right. You're definitely clicking through screens.
You would definitely also, they would save money because you're right, they would have 75% of the staff, but you are definitely playing as like a visiting
you're playing
state senator or an intern.
Or something.
And like you're there with two other characters who are also totally just FMV actors who are with you, so that when the main cast leaves,
characters for the game,
the three of you kind of talk in a room, and then you get to a point where, like Josh opens the door or whatever, and then like, okay, we got to do a little walk and talk to the next room, and then maybe the in a hallway you could pivot using your like Journeyman project, QuickTime VR, and see another character over in a different room. Click that way, and then you're following that walk and talk for a while.
When you finally get into the Oval Office, though, that's going to be a great.
Jeff Goldblum turns around and says,
"That's going to be a great final,
says,
60 seconds."
You did it! You did it! Go outside! You did it!
Wash the stink off.
Yep.
You're expecting someone else?
God, he lost worlds you at the very end.
Yeah. Well, I mean, now that's just the one I would make.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I think we actually answered that question collectively.
David Chang writes, Thumbs, will you indulge me with this question? Yes. Ben von Handorf writes, David Chang actually asks, if you could make a video game based off your character, the Shitty Wizard, what kind of game would you make? Can you each give an elevator pitch for this game? So when I read that, I think this is not what he meant. When I read this, what I thought he meant was like asking us each individually, your character, the Shitty Wizard. So like Nick, the Shitty Wizard, or Chris, the Shitty Wizard. Right. But I think what he means is our collective character, the Shitty Wizard.
Yeah.
Huh. I mean, Magica, the game Magica is kind of that.
Is it? I can't really remember.
Like Magica is the one where you cast spells by drawing patterns.
Yeah.
With the mouse.
Yeah.
And then it creates, but like you can combine the patterns of different spells and it'll create a merged one, and so sometimes you'll end up doing things that you didn't expect or whatever.
Yeah.
That's you could sort of make one like that.
But they don't work for some reason.
Yeah, there's something like more
unexpected.
When you combine them, they fuck up in more creative ways.
Yep.
Or fuck up at all, I guess. I don't know. What would the Shitty Wizard video game be?
Probably like an adventure game about a wizard who's just shitty, so he's just a detective.
Yeah, what if it was just like...
Is that just Simon the Sorcerer or something?
Yeah, that is basically what that is, I think. I never played those games. But
or like the Discworld, the first Discworld adventure games where you play as
he just plays a bad wizard, what if it was like Cart Life? With the wizard character illustrated by Graham Annable for the Idle Thumbs Kickstarter, who's just this dopey wizard who like goes to the supermarket and watches TV on the couch with his skull owl familiar and does the laundry, and then also like occasionally fights an epic duel with a dark wizard.
Right, but by and large just runs like with some crap apothecary or something.
Yeah. That'd be good. I would play that. I would play the like Papers, Please / Cart Life Shitty Wizard game where every once in a while you have a sick wizard duel, but most of the time you're just like running your life.
Yeah.
I strongly this is a Wizard Jam game that predates when we did streams, if I'm not mistaken. But John Christensen, who did the portrait of Chris Ramo that was up in our office earlier, made a game called The Shitty Wizard, and it is good. He made it inside of his own tool set that he calls Twine.
The comic.
It's like
Twine,
it's like a comic version of Twine. It's basically interactive fiction, but
I hope it's pronounced swine.
I hope it's pronounced swine. If you search itch.io for Shitty Wizard, you get this game, and it's a beautifully drawn comic story that you sort of go through it by clicking on comic bubbles to advance. Like when a comic bubble shows up, you click on it and it will advance to the next panel. But sometimes a character says two different things, and if you click on one of those two things, the comic will start taking a different path. But it ultimately always lays itself out looking like a full page.
It's beautiful. It looks like Mike Mignola's art or something like that.
It does. It's really, really nice. Eventually, though, this wizard goes up on top of a mountain and has a torn piece of paper that he then holds up, and it's revealed to be the painting of J. Allard inside of our office. Then when you click, oh man, I've broken it. Oh, no, sorry.
Well, you can play it yourself and find out.
Well, I will say that it goes from that high mountaintop to suddenly a daytime shot that says Idle Thumbs HQ San Francisco present day, and it includes me saying, "Where's J. Allard?" and holding an empty picture frame, and then it's sort of a story that goes from there.
Yeah.
And what I would do if I had to make the Shitty Wizard into a game was ask him to just make it already, and he did.
Easy answer.
I would just farm it out to the community.
Done.
Take a page from, Book of Modern Video Game Development.
All right. Last question.
The Shitty Wizard, that game was also already on the disc, and they charged separately for it, which is pretty fucking scandalous, in my opinion.
Ben von Handorf writes, last Ruination, I wrote in with a question about odd hobbies and mentioned my own recent fascination with fountain pens. At the same time, unbeknownst to me, a far more generous person actually sent you fountain pens. You wondered if I was the perpetrator of such gifts. I was not.
Amazing.
I felt as though I had benefited from their generosity unintentionally, and it has bothered me off and on ever since. Have you ever been hoisted by someone else's generosity, particularly through having it attributed to you? Also, my apologies to the generous gift giver. That's amazing. What the hell are the chances of that? That's really so crazy. Bizarre.
I can't remember an example right now, which is bad, but I feel like I've had other people's work attributed to me before, or like other people's ideas in a meeting attributed to me before, often just because I'm a louder person than a lot of other people, especially in a meeting. Like, it took me a long time to get over being a very quiet person who doesn't contribute to group discussions, but at this point, I'm generally just a loud idiot in certain situations. But what often happens is someone will say an idea that is good. I hear it get buried in the midst of a group conversation and say it louder, and then I get the credit for it.
Like,
and then I have to always be like, no, that person said it. And the worst is when that person doesn't necessarily wish to have the attribution put back on them because they were just sort of idly saying something to themselves, which doesn't happen at work very often, but it happens when I point out that someone else said a good joke sometimes, and a very quiet person who said the joke goes, go, and disappears. Then I feel like I'm bad on all fronts because I got the laugh, and then I put a spotlight on a quiet person who didn't want to have attention paid to them.
Yeah.
So I'm just an asshole.
What are you going to do?
Eat a Kit Kat.
You say need to get a cat?
No, eat a big Kit Kat.
Eat a big Kit Kat. Yeah.
That's what you say to just dismiss. Just go eat a big Kit Kat.
You just eat a big, huge Kit Kat.
Eat a bag of Kit Kats.
Eat a bag of Kit Kats.
Is that it? That's it?
No one else has a good answer for that?
I don't know. Christ.
You don't have to. Oh my God.
Pretty.
Yeah.
Urban Enthusiasm's coming back.
Mug up. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Very soon, I think.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I guess we're done with this podcast.
I think it might be over. I think we've overstayed our welcome.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for joining us on this Idle Thumbs Ruination Online for September 2017. We will be back in just a few days with another episode of Idle Thumbs, the video game podcast. And then a couple weeks after that with another one of these Ruinations.
Yep.
So thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah. If you would like to learn how yourself to get a question on this monthly podcast, you can go to patreon.com/idlethumbs and just read through the stuff that's there, and it will be clear to you. If you'd like to just send in a video game question that we may or may not read on Idle Thumbs itself, you can do that to questions@idlethumbs.net. And on that, we will be back soon enough. For Idle Thumbs, I'm Chris Remo.
I'm Nick Brecken.
I'm Jake Rodkin.
For Idle Thumbs, I'm Chris Remo.
I'm Nick Brecken.
Why don't you let me say what I want to say,
Because it's never good. It's never good.
Well, nobody cares. It's
I
the end of the
care.
episode. People aren't even listening anymore.
No, I care. For Idle Thumbs, I'm Chris Remo.
I'm Nick Brecken.
I'm Jake Rodkin.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Get out.